video is going to be a comparison between these and these. They probably don't look very different, and that's on purpose. These are the original Rothy's points, and these are the Rothy's points 2. And we are going to talk about the differences between them. Is it worth getting the 2 over the 1? Am I going to be keeping the 2 now that I've got them? Sizing information, smell, all of those kind of relative important questions. I've done a bunch of videos on Rothy's in the past, which I will link down below, but I thought now that these have just come out, it is time to review and compare. Let's go ahead and get started. To make my life a little easier, we're just gonna do one of each shoe. You can probably tell just based on the insole and how dirty it is, which one is the old one and which is the new. My old Rothy's are six years old, I think. So I've definitely had these for a while, and I have been considering selling them ever since I had my daughter 3 years ago, and I'm pregnant right now. My feet have changed slightly, and these are a little too small and a little uncomfortable. So when these came out, I was like, oh, perfect reasoning to get the new pair in the sizing that works a little bit better for me and to try them out. But is it worth it? And am I going to do it? Let's talk about it. The base is basically the same in terms of the design. You can see that the actual Rothy's symbol looks a little bit different, and this one says the sizing on the bottom, which is really convenient because people will never knew how to find the sizing like secondhand on this, which is listed inside. So they're both a 6.5. You might be able to see even in this close comparison that the sizing is not the same, and we will talk about that a little bit more. But the Rothy symbol is slightly different, and then the heel is slightly different. Otherwise, it's basically the same, rubber bottom, same point idea, has the little bit of traction support on the ball of the foot as well as the heel. Okay, so they both have the blue halo around the ankle. They both have the same kind of black knit. Sorry, see if I can focus that a little better. Same kind of black knit. And they both say, Rothy's inside. So fairly similar all around. You can see the same stitching along the heel. One thing I do want to point out, so obviously you can see that these are the newer. These have a little bit of a heel. It's not just a flat across bottom. You can see it a little better like that. It's not just flat across, it has a little bit of a heel, which is nice. You might also notice that the ankle comes up a little higher in the back, where it covers your heel. I should say the heel of the shoe comes up a little bit higher. That is because there is some cushion now inside on the heel. So it does actually sit a little higher on your foot, but not as significantly as it looks right here, because your foot actually sits up slightly higher, your heel sits up slightly higher in the shoe. Another thing I wanted to point out is, I don't know if it will show up since it's black. Can you see that there is an extra sort of stitched line, a little tiny detail, and it goes all the way around the shoe? I think that will help this is the new one, that will help it not to fray quite as easily. Again, I've had these for 6 years, so they haven't really frayed very much, but I could see it happening. So these do not have as obvious of a line. So that's a nice little attention to detail. I hold these up to where the point is at about the same spot. You can see that the vamp is different on the shoe. So the vamp of the newer one is higher, I guess. It's a higher vamp. It does not have as much toe cleavage, and the actual support of the vamp, the shape of the vamp, is a little bit different. You can also see, if I hold these up like this, and I put them on the side, you might be able to see that the newer one, which is this one, has a little bit more room. So the actual point, fairly similar, but as you get into the ball of the foot, and it's actually moved over, there it is. If you get into the ball of the foot, it is wider, so it's a little bit more comfortable. There is more width to it here, and slightly more maybe in the actual toe itself, but I would say the only real space that you see it is the ball of the foot is slightly wider on the new version. Newer one, the rubber itself is thinner. I find that really interesting. So they did add the heel, but then they actually just made this whole part a little slimmer. This is how the shoe looks without the insole in them. So you've got the green. I've definitely seen the green in lots of other Rothy shoes over the past few years. You've got the green inside. It's got all the information about washing. It has the sizing. It has all of that. So that, even though it is on the bottom, it's also still listed there. This is advertised as a 36.5 European, and this is advertised as a 37 European. What's very interesting about that is these are definitely the smaller shoe, the one that's advertised as a 37, but their sizing has changed a little bit over the years, and I'm gonna bring out another pair of shoes to talk about that in a minute. So back to the insoles. These are the changes that I think most people wanted to see. They wanted to see a little bit of a heel, they wanted to see a different insole, and they wanted a slightly wider ball of foot. They have done the ball of foot, they have changed the insole, they have added the heel. Personally, I think the heel is pretty insignificant. This is not enough of a heel to make much of a difference, but the extra height here and the insole helps a little bit. Here is how they look from the side. If I put them back to back, you can see the new one is definitely taller. These I've had for years. They've been washed many times. They're fraying very slightly, but not too bad. This is just floppy. This one has a little more weight to it. So they finished it here. This insole has its own kind of rubber bottom. This one on both sides is just fabric. And then it has this along the side, and it even has the sizing listed in here. And it has the new Rothy symbol and all of that. So interesting new insole design. And then the heel has a little give to it. You could sort of say it's in the ball of the foot as well. Like there is some thickness to this, and it does have a little give. You definitely feel it the most in the heel. These are nice new insoles. I don't think that they solve the problem of the arch support so much. Like, yes, there is a little support here. I actually find that on this shoe, this arch support doesn't fit me in the right spot. So it's not very comfortable. Again, it's not much in terms of arch support as it is, but because it hits a little in a slightly strange spot for me, it just doesn't really work, doesn't really feel particularly comfortable. But that is the new insole design. My old Rothys are 6 years old. Sizing has changed since then. So I'm gonna pull out a pair that are 2 or 3 years old that are also a 6.5 that are much closer to the newer size. So take it with a grain of salt. These are quite old. Sizing is definitely smaller at that point. I would go up a full size, and now I would go up a half a size. If you have more narrow feet, probably true to size. So this red point, if I hold them down to the same spot, you can see the sizing is much, much closer. Red is still slightly smaller. These, they are trying to make true to size. Also, because these are a little bit closer, again, in terms of sizing, show you the width difference. Definitely still a little bit wider in the newest. Put these right up to each other. You can see the vamp is still a little bit different. So let me show you some pictures look on and how they compare, how they fit on the foot. Here are the old, or the Rothy's 1.0. So that's how they fit on my foot. And then I will show you the new as well as one on each foot. Here are the new. One thing that's interesting is because you have the little bit of heel height, your foot actually looks a little slimmer in these, and the new design of the vamp has that effect as well. You can see that more as you're comparing them side by side. The shoe on the left is the old. You can see it looks a little flatter compared to that of the right. And then from this angle, it's a little bit more obvious. So you can see the way that the vamp hits. You definitely don't have as much toe cleavage, but it also does slim the foot in a nice way, and it has more coverage, which for a lot of people I think would be more comfortable. So final thoughts. Am I going to keep these? I've worn those others so much, and I'm in a stage of my life where I'm just not wearing them as much. I'm wearing sneakers, I'm running after my toddler, I'm pregnant. I wear my old ones all the time, and that's just not necessarily conducive to my lifestyle right now. So maybe that is part of it, but while these were lovely, and by the way, a little bit slippery when you first get them, I think that was the case when I first got the others as well. The changes are good. Like, should you get the newer version, it costs a little bit more than the old one. I'm assuming that they're gonna phase out the old one. I think they're good changes. Why not make them? I think they're fine. Do I think at this point it's worth the money to get the newer one versus the older? It's not like it's like $10 or $20, I think, different. So yes, it's probably worth it. Was I blown away by the changes? No. And part of me, because I haven't worn my Rothys that much in the last year, I just am wondering if I'm sort of over the recycled plastic material, because I'm really trying to rid plastic from my life in general. Do I want to do something with a more natural material? Do I want to do the newer Allbirds versus these? I do still think these look nicer. I do think the changes, the extra little support in the heel and stuff are nice and probably make them more comfortable than the old version. But I just don't know. I don't know if I necessarily want the new one in my collection. If you are for sure interested in having Rothy's points and you're a person who's going to wear them all the time like I used to, then yes, I think it's worth it. But will I keep them? I don't know. I'm definitely going to sell my old ones because they're too small. So those are going to go. But will I be keeping these? I don't know. I did not talk about odor. People ask me about odor all the time. I have never found odor issues with my old Rothys unless I stepped in something gross, right? But like actual just like sweat, that sort of odor issue, I never really had. I did wash them. When I was commuting in and out of New York City, I stepped in gross puddles a lot. And so I would, I would wash them more often. But I never found that there were too many issues with like sweating or anything like that. I think if you're gonna wear recycled plastic bottles, I have a lot of thoughts on recycled plastic in clothing. If you're going to wear it, I think shoes makes the most sense. But yeah, so odor issues, I never really had. I expect this will be the same. Potentially, this new insole will breathe less. So if you were someone who had odor and like sweat issues with these, I imagine this insole will be worse than this was. But that was never a problem for me. So that is it for this video. I had a lot to cover and say. Please let me know if you have any questions about these down below. Let me know your thoughts about them. I appreciate you all for being here. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in a future video. Bye.